only for a charter, but for many beautiful souls. So with much love, we had prepared and structured the participation of everyone. And I thank Marilyn, Laura, Juan Carlos, that work, hard work to make the best of this retreat. So thank you again and in advance for your time too. So here we are, Marilyn, and I pass it to Charles so we can have the meditation.
Right.
Thank you, Christina. As I was thinking about our meditation for this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are, I immediately thought of our overall global mission of cultivating compassion for global social transformation. And the key word for me was transformation. What exactly does this mean? What does it look like? How can we know where we are with a transformation as we move globally? So compassion integrity training uses two types of contemplative practices, stabilizing practices and analytic practices. The stabilizing practices are primarily for stabilizing body and mind, calming the body and mind, and especially useful in the first four skills of training and learning about compassion to self. This analytic, as we move through the steps in the CIT, the analytic become more important, where we talk about a topic or we meditate on a topic, an issue, or something that's of concern to us. I would say that at our last retreat, our first phase one of the retreat, Yafa really gave a beautiful, beautiful stabilizing contemplative practice, which those of you who were with us will remember. What I want to do today is to go into an analytic one that really focuses on this word transformation. And so I'm going to be using the metaphor of a butterfly. And but before we go into the analytic part of our meditation this morning, I think that it would be good for us to have a brief stabilizing contemplative practice, which I can always use, and maybe you can also use. So let me invite you to move into a position that is comfortable, your feet firmly grounded on the floor. You may want to stop your video at this time. And let me invite you to partially close or complete.
With us today, Ole has been very involved in helping us formulate not only the beginning part of the retreat, but also in some of the other work that we've been doing with the philanthropy group. And then we're going to move into major exercise with Juan Carlos, knowing what does success look like in a compassionate city, or at least exploring what that might be. And then a presentation of the magic canoe, which hopefully we will be using. And then we will have a break of just a few minutes so that you can get another cup of coffee. And then we'll have the last exercise for the day, which is what strategies can we implement to make, everything that we've been working on today happen, and then closing remarks. So with that, Laura, I'm going to turn it over to you. And as I said, these pictures that you see in front of you are just representations of people who've been invited to the retreat. So I know that Laura is going to just ask you these questions. I'll leave them up for just a minute or two while you give instructions, Laura.
Sure, and then I think we'll need to see everyone's faces again. Okay, great. So thank you for the meditation, Charlie. What we're going to do now is just a very brief who's here in the retreat with us. So if you'll share your name, where you're calling from, and if you can think of a role you've had in life, perhaps it was a job, but some kind of role that you've had that is something you're willing to share. This is just intended to be an icebreaker and not storytelling. So we can go ahead and start. I am looking at the screen here, and after you share, if you could just pick someone who hasn't gone, that would be terrific. So Jeff, would you be so kind as to get us started?
Thank you so much. Yes, well, lovely to be with you all today. Jeff Vanderkloot, and I'm currently in Crestone, Colorado, which might become my physical home base. Otherwise, I'm traveling more or less continuously, even during these times, with respect, spreading only love and compassion. And in terms of a job or a role that is most challenging or surprising, well, when I first started visiting Seattle back in 2010, and people started to ask me if I wanted to join their board, I found that very surprising and delightful and challenging, as I'd never had that kind of responsibility before for an organization with a high purpose in the world. So I've gotten used to it. It's still unusual and it's still delightful, and I'm really glad to be with you.
And if you'll choose someone, Jeff, to share their name, city, and a fun role.
Yes, so where is my eye drawn? Well, to Raki.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm Rakhi, and I live in Gurgaon, a satellite city close to New Delhi. And I call myself as a catalyst to human well-being and flourishing. And for that, I work as a coach, as a facilitator, working with adults, working with students. And I'm going to point out to Olivia. Over to you, Olivia.
Thank you. Good morning. I think it's good morning for most people. I'm in Vancouver, Canada, and I would say that the most challenging role would have been moving business sectors. So moving most of my career from the retail sector to the banking sector and feeling like a complete duck out of water.
Olivia, will you select someone to go next?
Yes, Arun.
Thank you, Olivia. And I'm Arun Vaklu, and I'm calling right now from Pune, India. Pune is fairly close to Mumbai. And the most fun role I've had in my life, which I enjoy, is to be a facilitator who loves to dance with people, dance with conversations, with organizations, and so on, and be like an empty flute in which existence and compassion and love plays the music, and the flute is just dancing along. Thank you. I'll now call on Laura Berg. Laura, would you like to go in next?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So my name is Laura Burgess, and I am here from Los Angeles, California. And the first role that had some impact on me was as a childhood playground mediator, and was called by my peers to help settle disputes. And that was an honor, and also became sort of a lifelong theme in my life as peacemaker. So happy to be here. I'm going to pick my brother Gard to go next.
Guard, your mic is.
Most famous words of 2020, your mic is muted. I'm Gar Jameson from Las Vegas. And I would say my most amazing, miraculous, numinous role has been to be the parent of two daughters, one who was a son and is now a daughter, transgendered, and the other who is an amazing artist in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Both of them are incredible human beings. And that's the role I'm most proud of. And I will pick my sister Yafa. You're on mute, Yafa. You're still on mute. Yafa, you're on mute. Okay.
There you
Yeah, I
go.
know. You know, somehow I actually, it's funny, but I don't see my face here in the screen, and I don't see my. Thank you for somebody who sent me this unmute thing. I'll have to refix it. So I hope you guys see me. Can you? Okay, because I don't see myself here in the kind of in front of us. So I'm Yafa, and I'm calling from New York at the moment, but I live in Seattle, Washington usually. So lucky for me, it wasn't 7 a.m. this time. And when I'm thinking about the challenging and unusual role, I was thinking about as a student in Israel, before it was popular all over the world, to do the kind of like luggage check at the airport as for security. I worked at the airport in Israel and was checking for luggage for security and checking people. And one of the most kind of like tasking role was to work with nuns who used to come by because there was some terrorist event with somebody that dressed up like a nun. So we need to strip up the nuns from all the layers of clothing. And I didn't like doing it at all. And then I would just take them to a little room and tell them to just take one layer off and then send them off, and then praying the whole time that the airplane will arrive safely to the other side. So this came to mind when I was talking about the role. Anyway, next I will ask Cynthia. Cynthia, did you talk already?
Well, thank you, Yafa. Wow. I'm Cynthia Figge. I am in Mexico right now, but my home is Issaquah, Washington. And the job that I'm a sustainability entrepreneur, and the job that came to mind, or the work that came to mind was in the 1980s, I worked in New York City and helped 25 nonprofit organizations start wholly owned for-profit subsidiaries to help them earn income. And it was a very beautiful, creative time of bringing together people passionate about social change with their entrepreneurial spirit. And it was challenging and very rewarding. I would like to call Marilyn.
Okay, I'm Marilyn. I live in Kingston, Washington. And I think the most unusual job I had was to be a US Census translator. And I got to face people. I was hired for being a Croatian translator, but never once was able to meet a Croatian. So they gave me every other language. It was quite interesting. I'm going to call on Arun. Your mic is on.
Already, yeah, sorry, I've already shared, but
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
can, no, it's okay. If you permit me, I'll call upon Mimi Hicklin.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm Mimi Hicklin from Snohomish, Washington. And I love this question because it brought up something I thought I had forgotten about. In middle school, the school I went to had a program called Natural Helpers, where they had the children select students or friends that they felt comfortable approaching with emotional and mental health problems. And I was selected and went to this retreat to learn how to support my peers through crisis. And I remember feeling so honored, and similarly, like I'm floundering in my own emotional weirdness at 14. And I haven't thought about that in a long time, and I'm wondering, it's a cause for reflection where that middle school experience helped my life pivot. I will call on Marcel.
Thanks, Mimi. I'm Marcel Kors. I live and work in British Columbia, Vancouver. And I guess my most challenging job that I can think of would be, because I live for challenges, but would be when I graduated university and started working. I wanted to do some volunteer work because I was paying off student debt and couldn't do much in that respect. So I signed up to work on a youth line, which took a fair bit of training, but it was a crisis line. It was 7 by 24, so you signed up and worked for shifts. And it was quite difficult. I lived at the time in Toronto, so you had a lot of big city urban young people problems, everything from people contemplating suicide to pregnant women to lonely people. So yeah, why don't I pick Donna?
Good morning. Thank you, Marcel. My feet touch the ground on the land of the Coeur d'Alene people in northern Idaho. And I feel really blessed to be snuggled up in the PNW with all my British Columbia and Seattle people. And since God chose parenthood, which was a rewarding challenge for me, I will share the most physically challenging job I've had is working for the NFL doing massage on middle linebackers. So nobody gave me the kickers, the skinny, smaller people. I usually got the biggest people on the team, but they were ever so grateful for my work. And I'm still doing massage, but not for the NFL anymore. And I will choose my sister Lynn.
Hello, everyone. Thanks, Donna. My name is Lynn, and I live in Kingston, Washington. And I was contemplating which one of 3 strange experiences to select. And I think I'm going with the fact that as a student in a high school in California, I was not allowed to work. And my cousin had arranged for cleaning jobs. So my worst recollection is cleaning ceilings in Northern California at 107 degrees. And it taught me a lot, and it also taught me to always look out for people who do the things that nobody really wants to do. So it's a good lesson. And I am going to select Susan.
Thank you. So I've been in nonprofits most of my life, but the one job that is not like the other that I did really early on, I worked in a framing shop. And so I learned all about art and cutting mats and cutting frames with the miter saw and putting the frames together and cutting glass and doing lots of creative things that way. So that was a fun job. Thank you for the question. And I'm going to ask Amin to go next, please.
All right. Hi guys. So my name is Amin. I'm good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm based in Karachi, Pakistan. So I was kind of scratching my head which one to go. So I've had multiple of experiences. One was a bridge falling in front of me. The car in front of me actually went underneath the bridge. So I got saved by a split second. I was close to a suicide bombing, and another time got saved there by a few seconds. I was in the close mid-air collision. I got saved. However, if you're talking about a kind of challenging experience, it was in my junior school where the teacher asked me to write and read an essay in front of my class. And I still remember that, my kneecaps were like shivering in front of the class. And that experience, actually, that was the first time I experienced being nervous. I had never experienced it. And that actually stayed for quite a few years with me. And then, of course, I went to college and then I got over it. But I think that was a traumatic experience in my life. Thank you.
Amin, you need to call on someone?
I'm not sure who is left. Charlie.
Okay, thank you, Amin. Charlie Barker in Dallas, Texas, in springtime, no less. After the freeze, this is wonderful to be here. I guess probably, I've had a long enough life that, like many of you all, a number of challenges in my life and career. But I would say probably the most challenging was as a young physician and spending 15 years in private practice, taking care of people from cradle to the grave and from ambulatory office to the intensive care unit. And it was a joy, it was a pleasure, but it was certainly a difficult time. I think for a fun role for me, you'd have to fast forward through several careers and come up to the last, I'd say, 10, 15 years, where helping to raise two of my grandsons has been a great joy and continues to be. So and they're fun. They love my green Jeep. They both now are driving, so I don't know if I'll see the Jeep again or not. But anyway, that's me. And I will pass to my, I hope she doesn't take offense to this, my elder sister, Joan Brown Campbell.
I am honored by that. As a matter of fact, yes, well, as a matter of fact, it is true. One of the things that I have been thinking about is there's nothing that is inspiring like listening to the words all of you are saying. And here am I, nearly 90 years old. I will be within not such a short time. The gift of being 90 years old is really the gift of forgetting. And I never thought I would think it was a gift. Forgetting is not a wonderful thing. But on the other hand, it is, in fact, perhaps one that gives us something that we can think about, something that other people can begin to think themselves about what it's like to come to your 90th year. And so I'm grateful here for being taken into the group that has been part of my life for quite a long time. And I am very sorry to say that I don't have a name to give to be the next speaker. We've been through quite a lot of them. So perhaps I have the wonder of saying the unknown name will please be next.
How about we step in and we ask Juan Carlos?
Hello, everybody. I am calling from Teotihuacan, Mexico. I normally live between Mexico City and Tepoztlan, but I was in a equinox ceremony today at 4 a.m. Apparently, whenever I need to speak to you, I am in a conference with you, I have to be non-sleeping and be, waking up very early. So the job that is being more fun, crazy, unexpected was when I was living in the United States and I quit my corporate work in General Electric. I was a subcontractor in Albany, New York. And I said, God, I quit the corporate world. I want to work awakening humanity. And I ended up opening a coffee house in Boston. So I was a barista. I was like a community organizer, was making sandwiches, and I was in charge. I opened a coffee house with some friends in Boston between Harvard and MIT. It was an amazing experience, learning about self-organizing community. Well, that was a story. And well, I will pass it over to Christina.
Well, yes, thank you. I think my challenging work has been, I had a company, a clothes factory for about 30 years. So when I left it to start the social organizations that I had been in, I thought I was not going to be, you know, to work it out as I did it as a CEO of a company, and I have a challenge every year for this Encuentro Mundial de Vendedores, with this worldwide meeting on human values. So every year is a big challenge to bring, you know, the best people, that the best transformation possibilities for the people. So I think I'll go with that, with this challenge every year that I have, and I'll pass it to Lisa. Thank you.
Good morning. Lovely to see you, Christine. We met, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago. Anyway, let's see. So the most unusual jobs, working as a massage therapist and telepathic communicator between members of the Italian Olympic equestrian team and their horses. But actually, the most surreal job I have is as a city council person in my home city of Marina, California, which is the land of the Ohlone, Amomotsin, Rumsen, and Estlin tribes. And then, sorry, I'm on my phone right now because my laptop is not behaving correctly. So let me see.
I think we have Mary Catherine left.
Great.
And
Thank you,
Laura
Madeline.
and Felipe.
And Namrata.
And Namrata, sorry. Okay, Namrata, why don't you go?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm calling in from Bangalore, which is in the south of India, where I relocated just last year. And the most challenging and fun job has been being a mom in the middle of this pandemic, when I had to learn how to cook and feed my family at the same time, not having a lead time of even a single day, and manage all the housework by myself, which was really new to me. So I was very, very challenged by it, but I had stupendous growth through that time. So that's me, and I'd like to pass on to Mary Catherine.
Thank you. I am in Edinburgh, Scotland, in the United Kingdom, though I'm originally from Iowa and Nebraska. And like a lot of you, I could choose from a number of things, but the one that kind of fits a pattern of unusual transformation that I didn't know was going to happen was when I had been teaching junior and senior high, and I knew it was time to shift, and I was offered a job as a management trainee with the Union Pacific Railroad. And I thought, what the heck does this have to do with anything? And so I actually sat on the application on the job request for like two weeks before I finally said okay. And by doing so, when I said okay, it was because I knew I could leave if I didn't like it, if it didn't work, because it seemed so different. And instead, I was paid to learn. I got to go through Switchman Brakeman School, Locomotive Engineer School, the Yardmaster School. I met people all over the entire railroad. I have friends from there that still are in my life. I was there for a long time. It's my retirement. And each year something new emerged. It was management trainee, and then it was working with injured employees, and then it was working with quality of medical care, and then it was leadership development. It was like, I could never have guessed that. So it really fits with the transformative thing about you jump into the mush and you don't know where you're going, but you just have to hang on. And then good things happen generally. So there you go. Who's left?
I think
Felipe? Felipe, let's go to Felipe.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm calling from Santiago, Chile right now. Fall starts tomorrow, so that's my call to leave to the Northern Hemisphere. So I leave on Monday back to Utah. to enjoy spring and summer again. And I think my most challenging sort of like job or role was I was a Mormon missionary for 2 years of my life. I escaped Mormonism, but it was truly probably the most challenging yet rewarding role in my life, because I got to learn about humanity in a different way. I had to like understand different points of view, see a reality that I probably would have never seen. And funny enough, I learned to love myself, which is probably the main reason why I went there, was to sort of like change, because I was definitely afraid of being homosexual. And so I thought that maybe going on my mission would be like the one thing that like God will take and heal me. When in reality, it was right in the middle of my mission that I was in Sacramento, California serving. And that's when Prop 8, which is like the law that happened about gay marriage and all that happened. And that made me realize that I was fine the way I was. And it was the beginning of a self-discovery and self-compassionate journey that now has become like disruptive thinking all the time. And it's amazing. It's so great. So I'm truly grateful for that role.
Great. I think we haven't heard from Laura. So Laura, your mic, there you go.
No, I've spoken, Marilyn.
Oh, have you?
I
Oh.
have. I think that's everyone.
Donna is left. Marilyn, Donna Mills. No, you've
No,
spoken, Donna?
No, I spoke.
She spoke.
Okay, okay.
Remember
Okay,
the
thank you.
NFL? Well, I'll never forget that. Okay, great. Thank you all so much. And here is, I hope, a little treat for us from looking at how we were just a few weeks ago.
We are in a very sensitive moment in this process of humanity, and there are a lot of suffering around the world, and also there are a lot of people and hands and hearts giving what they have.
To breathe in, become aware that you're breathing in, and when you breathe out, become aware that you're breathing out. The mind might wander to thoughts, feelings, sensations.
I can't hear it.
Begin to release them to bring back your awareness to yourself.
Where you are at this present moment, what is alive in you? What is alive and strong in you? What's just popping up inside you and why you're here today?
An unspoken connection that I feel towards you. I feel you. I hear you through my feelings.
So many areas, so many people, so many connections that it's almost unfathomable.
Over the last year or two, I've had the opportunity through the charter and through other ways to start connecting with people all over the world.
Our hope is that Juan Carlos could lead us into a presentation about collective consciousness.
These are the 7 levels of complexity on how a community, these are all of the skills that a community needs to get in order to get to the everybody all at once.
I invite you to feel how you're sitting.
What I want us to do now is I want us to do some time travel. We're going to go to the year 2050.
The work of the Charter is sort of unpacking how we've been put together.
So we can start to really turn these visions into reality. We're there. I think that's happening. And the Charter is definitely playing an incredible role here.
None of us really mentioned an economic measurement, but we all sensed a gross national happiness.
I think what I felt was an increased openness.
I saw like half of the planet, half of the land mass was given over to plants and animals so that they could flourish.
Where it's not so much about like, oh, I'm gonna come here and help because I know the way to do it. It's more realizing like, how can you love yourself so that you can learn how to help yourself, and by doing so, you help everyone around you.
The process is just as important where we try to get to. So how we show up is very, very important.
And I know a critical mass can be, with a catalyst, can be a lot less than if you have no catalyst to make it happen. And perhaps that catalyst is the Charter's work.
Just one key word, since the initial stages of the Charter, we've always used the word movement. We always thought ourselves as a global movement.
The changing of people's hearts is because you know yourself and you know your neighbor.
What would it mean to be compassionate, to be a compassionate city or a compassionate church or a compassionate state? That's a very distinctive honor that we have at the Charter that's very differentiated and really unique.
So I see the Charter as a movement supported by our organization, which is an invitation for each individual to take responsibility for their own consciousness with the filter of compassion at the forefront of that sense of responsibility.
3 specific things which I believe we could do is, one is we could become a lot more purposeful about where each of us are expending our energy as volunteers. The second is we need to quickly build capacity in terms of being able to host spaces and get communities together. And building communities can really be our overarching purpose. So whatever work we are taking up, if it's not really adding to community building, we drop it.
I feel now, for the first time in quite a while, that the coming together, not apart, but coming together in the way you think and in the way what we can do and what we can work together in, however together forms itself. And then I think we'll begin to reach out and others will begin to see it. And there is a wish for it. I know that, I hear it. Sometimes people say words that don't seem like that's what they're saying. But if you just go a little further, people want to find a way.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to Juan Carlos. And to help facilitate a little, what inspired us in watching the video and perhaps even in hearing what we have as part of our roll call? Juan Carlos.
Yes, thank you. So we're gonna go again, not in a way of a roll call, but we're gonna make it a little bit different right now. We want only one word in which you can describe what inspired you, and also in the second word is what is the gift that you are bringing to this session. So it's going to be 2 words. You have to, in 1 word, to say what inspired you here and what is the gift that you're bringing to the sessions. So I'm gonna go actually just following the names that I have in my screen. So I'm gonna be calling going for the roll call. So I'm gonna start with you, Marilyn. You're the first one.
I knew you were going to do that, and because I wasn't paying really close attention because I was trying to line up for the next one, but okay, I'm prepared. I think what inspired me is the positive nature of everyone, their willingness to be so committed and so passionately involved. And it was really interesting hearing the heart work of so many people, even though technically, if you just heard their jobs and what they were challenged by or related to, there seemed to be some human connection. It was amazing to see the smiles on people's faces as they talked about themselves. And I think the gift that I bring is very often I feel like I can take a 30,000-foot view of a situation so that in turn I can bring it down to reality, to the ground. And I think that I think I'm very good at lateral thinking and really pushing to look at all of the components of a situation.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay, well, let's continue. But it was the most difficult for you for being the first one. Now everybody has some time to think. We want 1 word of each one of you. And thank you, Felipe, for bringing this into the chat window. What inspired you to of being here, and also what inspired you from the session, the video we just had, what do you bring to this conversation? So we are gonna go with Lynn. One word for both of those.
Sorry about that. That was
And you're on
long.
mute.
I think
It's
my
okay.
word for inspiration is hope. And what I bring to the conversation, I don't know if it really applies, but it's open. I feel very open.
Thank you, Lynn. Rocky.
So, shared vision for an interconnected world. And I get the gift that I bring is being a catalyst and to serve.
Thank you. Arun.
Inspiration is, the word is connection. And what do I bring to this conversation is love.
Thank you. Thank you, Arun. Jaffa.
So
you have to be ready, all of you.
Yes.
I think Jaffa.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So what kind of inspired me was the contagious energy that came from everybody who spoke. And the gift that I bring is unwavering commitment to the transformation that can happen through compassion action.
Thank you, Jaffa. Olivia.
Transformation is the first word, and commitment is the second.
Thank you. Beautiful. Garth.
What brings me is gratitude, and the gift is imagination.
Thank you. John Brown.
Joan, I'm not quite sure. We can't hear you, and I can't see if your mic is on or off. It's on.
Mine? It should,
Yes,
it
there
should
you
be on.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Was that a call? I didn't hear the call.
Yeah, Juan Carlos was asking you, out of so far the video that you just saw, what inspired you to be here? And then the second question, what do you bring to the conversation?
What inspired me to come here was the opportunity to hear people speaking with honesty. I have such good feelings here that when people speak, they're not trying to fool you, but it's really honesty. And I think that's a very huge value to be receiving. And the other question was?
What do you bring to the conversation?
What I shouldn't bring to the conversation is that I'm 90 years old, and that means that I forget every other thing that I had in my mind. But the gift I bring is honesty.
Okay.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, we'll continue with Donna.
Thank you. My inspiration is humans. I love them. And my gift to them is my non-negotiable love for them.
Thank you. Beautiful. Marcel.
Your mic is there.
Yeah, there we go. What inspires me to be here is love and what do I bring to this conversation is gratitude.
Thank you, Marcel. We'll continue with Maha.
Oh, I am unmuted. Okay. Hello, everyone. So what my inspiration is that we human beings are capable. We are capable of something we don't know yet what it is. What I bring here, I bring the challenge that we try to come closer to this unknown powers of ours.
Thank you, Maha. Okay, we'll continue with Laura.
What a great smile, Maha. Thank you for that. I am inspired by the true sense of a global family forming, and I feel truly that kind of love for each and every one of you. And I believe that I bring courage to the organization. Thank you.
Laura. We will continue with Mary Catherine.
I smiled because when I was looking for one word to describe what Laura just said, I could think of as interconnectedness as what inspires me. And the gift I brought was courage. So.
Burgess and Burgess.
Burgess and Burgess.
Beautiful synchronicity. Okay, we'll continue with Susan.
I was inspired by everyone's commitment, and I bring passion.
Thank you. We'll continue now with Felipe.
Mary Catherine said mine in the inspiration because I love interconnectedness. I think that's what inspires me the most, at least for this. And for what I bring to the table, I would say authenticity.
Excellent. Thank you, Felipe. Now we go with Charles.
If I can get myself unmuted. Yeah, I think I was inspired by the togetherness that I saw. And the gift that I hope I'm bringing is myself and all that I am. So thank you.
Good. Thank you, Charles. Now we go to Christina.
Yeah, what inspires me is love for common humanity, as we see here. And what I bring is passion.
Thank you. Now we go to Amin's iPad.
Hi. I've always believed that the world should be run by women, and what excites me is that CFC is where this whole thing is, this whole phenomena is unfolding. What I bring to the table is a socialist heart and a capitalist mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Min. We go now to Namrata.
What inspires me to be here is the sense of community that I see building with every gathering. And what I bring as a gift is a womb to help incubate communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we go to Jeff.
Thank you, Juan Carlos. Well, the word has been said, and I must say it again, transformation. And if I may offer an image, what I see here is a lightning strike of fierce compassion leading to lasting positive change. I'm so grateful for the charter for being that energy. And what I'm bringing is listening. Just if I may be silent and listen deeply to our collective beating heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. We go to Mimi.
Mimi is away with her baby at the moment.
Okay, then I think we're missing Cynthia.
I'm inspired by the deep listening, and the gift that I bring is the skill of integration.
Thank you, Cynthia. So are we missing anybody else? Raise your hand.
Lisa.
Who?
Lisa.
Lisa.
Yes, hi. I was inspired by the commitment to live hope, and the gift I bring is more like bridge building.
Thank you. Anybody else? I think it is me. What inspires me to be here is the possibility of a world living in compassion, possibility. And the gift that I bring, the word that comes to me is manifestation. Let's make it happen. So, well, thank you for this phase. We'll speak more about how we are moving forward and what is the path to get into the next levels of manifestation and action. So I will pass it over now back to you, Marilyn.
Right. And what we have done is we invited Ole, when we found out that he couldn't be here today, to just give us all a message. I guess this would be called a motivational talk. So here he is.
Dear friends, leaders of the Charter for Compassion, we represent an important organization for the transformation of the world to become the peaceful, joyful, and sustainable planet that our hearts desire, and that we intuitively know is possible to achieve. For those of you who don't know me, I am Ole. I live in Stockholm, Sweden. I worked for 40 years supporting corporate leaders in developing companies. 4 years ago, I switched to supporting the development of a better world. I met Barbara Marx-Hubbard, who asked if I would join her to help organize humanity's co-creation of a better world, a united humanity who work together, creating paradise on earth. And how do we do this? We're certainly frustrated by the big organizations that are governing us today. Countries led by sometimes opportunistic political parties, corporations, sometimes short-sighted. They're not delivering the results that we want, at least not at the pace we would like. So what do we do? I believe that teams working together with a mission motivated by the members' life purpose is the essential building block for the new local, global teams, whatever. And I also believe that such teams, governed by high integrity, can connect with other teams across the planet and form a fabric that gradually can form the structure and support structure for creating the planet that we all desire. And I also believe that the Charter for Compassion can have an important role to play in forming such teams. This is how I see it. The world is at a shift point. Millions of people are waking up to pursue a greater purpose in their life. And we can see bursts of compassionate energy in the Me Too movement, Fridays for Future, and Black Lives Matter sweeping across the planet. We have achieved critical mass, but we're not able to harness this energy in a sustained, ever-growing, compassionate movement. We are not able to find our like-minded co-creators to pursue our life missions. We lack a structure for finding each other, orienting ourselves. And this is where I see that the Charter for Compassion has almost a divine role, a gift to humanity at this point in time. We have only one value at the center of everything we do, and that is compassion. We can connect with people in education, in environment, in justice, in relations, in all sectors of our societies, and help them find each other and work together to create the world that they desire and that we all desire. We are an enabler, and we already serve as the largest network in the global compassionate movements, with hundreds of communities, thousands of partners, 100,000 or more followers on Facebook. So it is in our
I can't hear this.
support and connect compassionate people. It could be a fantastic gift to society. So I invite you to explore if this is what we want to do, and if
I
so,
can't hear
change
it.
today.
I think it's.
Thank you. Dear friends.
Okay, Juan Carlos, it's back to you.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Share something with you. Can we have the image of the wheel?
Yes, I'll get it back on. I'm just, for people on the call, it would be great if you could mute yourself and unmute yourself as you talk, because there's a lot of background sound that's coming out. Okay, here we go. Here's the wheel.
Okay, thank you. So, well, let's move into action. Is in this first phase of the meeting is been about just like strengthening bonds of getting to know each other and bringing everybody's voice into the center. And now, what we want to do with you is we want to present to you the compassion wheel of co-creation, and this is inspired on Barbara's Mars Hobart wheel of co-creation, and we've been doing some changes to that. We are bringing compassion to the center, and then all of the areas of impact of action which Charter for Compassion works around the planet. So something important about this wheel, one of the elements of how the wheel of co-creation works is that it allows us to work in a systemic way. The moment we bring all of the sectors of the wheel in a circle, suddenly we gain a holistic vision. It helps us to move to be working from silos, and we start working there in a more systemic way. So the fact that we're working as a wheel, that's an important element. The second important element of the wheel of co-creation is what you can read here at the center, also called golden innovations. The golden innovations, it is we call it, it is an evolutionary process in which we evolve our society. So what we're looking with the golden innovation is what are the programs, the projects, initiatives that have the DNA of the new. And the question that we bring in this process of using the wheel is, how do we evolve peace? How do we evolve healthcare? How do we evolve environment? And it is the simple question that we bring in this process is, are we satisfied in the way things are going? Can we do any better? And the answer to those questions, we know them. Are we satisfied? Of course, we are not. We can do better, yes, definitely. We can improve the conditions of each one of the sectors of the wheel, and we can evolve it. So the invitation for the exercise that we're going to do now is, how do we evolve each one of these sectors of the wheel? And how we are going to go through this in terms of how do we evolve it? As we have compassion into the center, we are going to bring the question, how does the arts and media will look in a compassionate city? How the business will need to shift if we were living in a fully compassionate city? Education, what does it mean to have a fully compassionate education? And so we go through each one of them. So we want to look and understand how the success looks like in each one of them. The moment we have clarity on how the success looks like, we will be able to be more precise on what type of projects and programs we could be doing in each one of these areas of impact. And something else about the wheel is, if we want to work as a compassionate city, we cannot work necessarily in silos, saying, oh, we are just going to pick social services or restorative justice to ensure that we can have a compassionate city. It doesn't work that way. We need to work holistically. So that's why the wheel could help us to work in a more holistic way with higher impact. So I just wanted to make this brief introduction of the wheel. And now I'm going to explain you what we're going to do. We're going to break into groups. We're going to be working into each sector of the wheel. I am going to share with you a link here in which I will invite all of you to go through. I trust that all of you are familiar with Google Docs, and that this is a shared document. It is a PowerPoint. And perhaps can I share my screen?
Yes, go ahead. I unshared mine.
I just had a quick question. I don't know if
Yes.
it's a good time or appropriate to ask it.
Yes.
In the context of what we are doing, I was wondering if you could take a moment to share what is the Charter's overarching vision and where do we see this piece fitting in? That would help put things in perspective.
Okay, would you like to respond to that, Marilyn?
Yes. I think that it's fair to say that you know, our vision is one that we use, that we want our goal to be where we live in compassion with one another. And so the way that we do that is through the use of working in sectors, working in cities.
Can you say that a little louder?
Sure. The goal of the Charter is for everyone to live in a compassionate world. And so therefore, the way that we do that is to work in cities with various groups of people, starting at the grassroots, and then in collaboration with people as partners and creating programs, working with local government.
Thank you. Excellent.
Okay. Is there any other question?
Maybe
yes?
Following that question, is it the Charter that's doing these things, or is it local communities that are doing these things? And if it is local communities, I have a question.
I think that the fair thing to say is that we do things initially in conjunction. The Charter acts as a facilitator and to a certain extent as a mentor, but the true work of building a compassionate city is in the hands of the local community.
Yeah, and Karen has often said that a compassionate city is an uncomfortable city. And in Las Vegas, we've identified 4 areas of discomfort, and we're working on those. Mm-hmm. So again, I think the question of role is really, really important here as we move forward.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I might add to what Gard is saying, I think that, you know, if you look at our overall mission of cultivating compassion for global social transformation, then I think that everything follows from that with regard to partners, with regard to cities, and we really, our vision and our mission is really to connect the communities, to connect the partners, and to help facilitate, as Marilyn very aptly said, facilitate the enculturation of compassion in whatever endeavor we find ourselves in. But we're not the actual doers. We're the facilitators, as I mentioned in the last part 1. You know, we're really a catalyst to help to move things along. It's kind of like the burning bush that's not consumed. If anything, hopefully the bush is flowering and getting bigger, but it's not being burned up. It's really being a catalyst for change, for transformation. So that's just my take. And the board of the Charter has really grappled with this and really, you know, focus on compassion cultivation and training through the various modes of education and training that we have embraced, which most of you are familiar with. So with that, I'll leave it. Thank you.
I would just add one more thing, and that is for us to think about the word incubation. Karen Armstrong had the idea of a charter for compassion. The TED organization said, okay, we'll try and get that started for you. But at the same time, they became not only the initiators with her, but then they became the incubators, and that incubation period lasted from the TED organization to the Fetzer organization, and then to the Compassionate Action Network in Seattle. And all that time, they were like preparing the charter for something. And I think the some things have been some of the issues that have been brought up, that we are an instigator, we are a facilitator, and to a certain extent, I can say that we are incubating a number of compassionate cities, insofar as really meeting with them on a regular basis. And when I say regular basis, I mean in some cases weekly, in other cases monthly. And then once they begin to get their feet on the ground, then they begin their process the same way that the charter itself began its.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think this brings also some clarity to the exercise we want to do right now, because as being a catalyst and also a connector of all of the different groups and people that are made a city to be compassionate, having clarity as we have here on how this compassion should be present in a compassionate city in the field of arts and media. We are going to go through this whole process on how do we make it happen in all areas, in business, in education. And then the second question, the second part of the exercise is how could this be possible? So having these answers and exploring how does compassion looks like in each sector of the wheel is going to give us some understanding of what type of organizations or programs will need to happen and who are the ones doing it in our city. In that way, we could become like the conveners of those people to talk to the people from the arts, to be talking to the people from business, or to be talking to the people of education. And that's the type of weaving that happens when we use the wheel of co-creation. That's how we weave a community. That's how a movement can be born around building a compassionate city. So if you don't have any questions, let's go into the exercise. If you have any question about the exercise, we will ask you, we will divide you, and you will be given a group. And then you will just, you will be working here in this document. And as you know how this works, you have, you double click here and you will be able to write the answer. You will be able to write the answer here. And then if you click here, we invite you to write the names of the people that will be in your group. So we know who is working, who were the ones participating here, right? Are we clear? So we're going to break you into groups, and then you can choose which, and you can put the names on the groups that you want to work with, that you're working with. Okay. So
let's see if anyone has any questions.
Let me just stop. Yeah, let's just go before if you have any question.
Sorry, I did have another question. I'm just trying to see how this exercise is going to help us, and also the work that we are being asked to do is, it seems really contextual to a city. So what, let's say, Las Vegas would find relevant may be very different from what a Mumbai or what, you know, another city in another country might find relevant. So how are we looking at all this being combined and all those, you know, various gaps being filled? How are we planning to use the outcome of this exercise is really my question.
Mine too.
Juan Carlos, do you want to? I mean, I can jump in.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay. I think that one of the richest gifts that we have in the Charter is to understand the connections that happen. And oftentimes we find out about those connections because you are closely associated or have been with Mumbai, for example, and now Bangalore, that you would be thinking in those terms, like what would a compassionate business program look like in Bangalore? And this is like taking from the real to the imagination, which we have done a few times. But then when we bring all of this together, when we maybe mesh it together, what we begin to see is there's a possibility. So I will give you one example. We did for 4 years now the Compassion Education Summit in Jordan. That is an incredible model that could be tweaked in every country in the world, that it would have a different kind of imprint. But if somebody didn't know about that, then they would start from the very beginning. So what we're trying to do here is to bring out what might be happening within partner groups, what might be happening within city groups. And then we're also asking you to go and use your imagination, your innovation, so that we can begin, as Juan Carlos has said, to move outside of our silo. We might be so involved in business, but by the way, we're not. But the very fact that, there is, like Christina is very involved in business. So we can bring those ideas into the work that we're doing in other sectors or in other cities.
Could I say one little thing on that?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm apologize for that, but I think that as I come here as a person almost age of 90, the age factor is also something when I'm listening to all of this that is I'm wanting to hear and feel. How does the age affect? Because in so many ways, maybe for women as most, the older you are, you may know quite a bit, but you're not heard very much. And so some of this also, I think, comes out as we're looking through, what do we see and what do we, is it possible for the ager person to be a player?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how else to put it.
Well done.
Mm-hmm. Marilyn?
Lisa?
Quick question, because it seems to me that we're basically just crowdsourcing all of the information because there's so much wisdom here on this call that we're trying to create a direction of where we're going, right? Am I?
Eventually, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think the end of all of this today is that, maybe there is a group that will just meet and look at all of this information, and you'll see at the end we have one slide that will help us kind of begin to look at what are the possibilities, and then what are we going to do, how are we going to
what does it mean?
act? Yeah, what does it mean for our future? And it's not going to happen today, but it'll be kind of a blueprint for us to consider. And as
people that are kind of old, they don't have a lot of time.
Okay, that means that we better move on.
No, I'm just joking, but I mean,
no, I know.
Part of life as an older person, and I've run into it very recently, is that you don't have a lot of time, and it's a plus, not a minus.
Susan has a question.
I have a question, and I have the breakout rooms ready. So there are 8, there'll be 8. And so will each room take one sector, and how will they decide?
Juan Carlos.
Yes, what I will be doing, I am putting their numbers to each one of the groups. So whatever group number you have, that's the sector of the will that you will be working with. So if you are in group number 1, then you will be going to arts. If you are group number 2, you will be going to business and so on.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Yep.
So the last 4 sectors won't have any input.
Yes. Well, we could do that. How many people did you put in the group?
I put 3 in each group. Do you want me to rearrange it and put 2?
Yeah, we could do 2, and so we could go to all of them, and that will fix it. We're 24, exactly, well, 25.
Okay.
And the important part of this exercise is that even if we have different cities, this is where we could be learning from one another in terms of the different perspectives on how this compassionate city will look in India, and how will that look in Las Vegas, for instance. I believe that when we start having this shared image of success, and we can cross-pollinate with different perspectives, that's where we can start learning from one another and building some shared understanding of how compassion could look in our communities. And at the end, each community will come up with their own vision of success. And this is what is going to help us have a conversation in terms of what are the most the projects, the more appropriate projects or programs in our cities to bring compassion to the highest level and impact. I just wanted to respond that also to your question, Namrata. So are we ready? Are we clear now? So we're going to go into groups. If you are group number 1, 2, or 3, you go and look into the sector of the will with that number, and you will respond the first question. So how the success looks like in that city. So let's just throw the process, and this is, I believe this is gonna guide us into a process of getting higher coherence as a whole group in terms of agreeing how the success looks like exactly, how does a city will feel if compassion will be the guiding principle in that sector of society.
How much time do we have?
We're going to go for 15 minutes to have that conversation in each sector, and then we're going to come back and we're going to regroup and harvest what happened in each one of the groups we were.
Thank
you. So can you just say, or maybe write down, what are we thinking about? Exactly, how do you define the question? How would you like to see a city when art and craft is more compassionate kind of activity? Or how do you define the question that we need to think about?
The question is on the PowerPoint slide that you'll be working on.
Okay.
And there is a request for a break. How do you?
Yeah, maybe five minutes break. Can we do that?
At this moment?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. Okay, we can take the break now.
How was your discussion?
Beautiful.
Mine was very rich. Hello, everyone. Welcome
Hi
back.
there.
Welcome back.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you for making this breakout experience a good one, and thanks for making it happen.
It was too short.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But good fun.
Hello, everybody.
Hi there.
Hello, everyone. How did you do? This was like an accelerated process to bridge the digital gap and get us all into this new phase of working online. How did you feel?
I have a lot of adrenaline in my blood now. What did you do to us here, Juan Carlos?
I have to say that Felipe and I peeked at the work of other people. And nobody was doing anything in art, so we just went ahead and we started there too. It was fun.
Lovely. So Marilyn, we'll have two things in arts then, because Laura and I also worked on arts.
Oh, we didn't see that. Well, we'll have to combine.
Lovely.
Okay,
Yes,
well,
yes, sure.
It's okay. I think just for the sake of making this easy, this exercise has two parts. So the first part is what we did in terms of how do we envision success in a compassionate city in each one of the sectors. And the second question is how do we make it real? That is supposed to be the second round that we're going to go through now. But it's okay, we can review it, we can fine tune what we have. And well, any insights about this exercise? What did you see happening?
So before
Any questions?
before you explore ahead, I would like to ask: is it possible to add some more points to whatever we discussed to the sector? Is it possible to add more things?
More things like more sectors, you mean?
No, like I was part of business and it was just starting off to think and a lot of things coming up, but now sitting back, some more points are coming up, which I feel that they are important. So is it possible that we could add to that particular sector? Or we could have a discussion more and then we can add with my partner later on.
Yes, definitely. We can add more pages if you want. I mean, you can add another page and continue, definitely. Let's not be limited by space. And this exercise, what we are doing now, I mean, this is in a way to become a manifesto, a way to measure how do we measure success as a city of compassion. And this is what we're building here is the first draft. This document can be a document that we can continue building, fine-tuning in the smaller groups, where we can take this to our extended community of experts on each one of the fields, and we can fine-tune this, and this can become like a document for people to have a greater understanding and guidance on what does a compassionate city looks like. We can go from the Miss Universe statement, oh, this is a compassionate city, to the very accurate, this is exactly what we're expecting to happen in each sector of the wheel. So I really like the process and the exercise. Any other comments? I would like to show what we just wrote, but before we go there, is there any other insight or question or something that you didn't understand? Well,
yes, please.
I was going to say, I think we maybe, Christina and I might have jumped ahead to part two, how to make it a compassionate city. But something we were talking about was that, and we had healthcare. What we learned in this exercise is the success of any given compassionate sector in a city is really reliant on its connectedness to the other sectors. And as we were talking about what compassionate healthcare might look like, it's pretty impossible to be compassionate if healthcare as a sector is siloed in that work. So I imagine that's sort of universal across all of the sectors that we were working with.
Mm-hmm. And Lisa, I see your hand is raised, so why don't you speak?
Yeah, I think we may have gotten into part two also as well, because we were talking both sort of high level, but then we got into some higher level specifics.
Mm-hmm.
So they got very integrated. Also, on a separate note, I typed in the actual PowerPoint and the downloaded version. Do you want me to copy and paste it in the Google Doc?
It should be there.
No, because I downloaded the slides and I worked on actual PowerPoint, not in the Google Docs directly. So okay, apologies.
Yeah. Okay. Guard, I see your hand up.
Just copy paste it and that will be okay.
So I think the wheel for Amin and I was the most powerful part of this whole exercise. And to follow Mimi's thought, it's collective impact.
Yeah.
So if you want to do well in healthcare, you better have a thriving arts and culture sector.
Mm-hmm.
And social, and all the way around. I think if there's what I'm getting from this session, if there's a central message, if there's a takeaway for me, going to Namruta's question, the takeaway is that these are all integral parts of the wheel. They are all spokes of the wheel, and they're all absolutely necessary. And what I would love to see is I would love to see each of the sectors come up with some metrics, maybe 2 or 3 metrics, because I love to share this with our compassionate Las Vegas and say, here are some of the metrics we're thinking about. What do you guys think? Are there other metrics? So that would be a great thing if we could generate that.
Sure. I just want to, may I, Marilyn, just take a minute?
Yes.
So I think I totally echo what Mimi and Gard, all of you are saying. And I think the thing is, like, for example, if there is a deep, very powerful art thing, it will help education. It will also help healthcare. If we are very, very good in governance. And so it's all absolutely the same. But I think the key is, if you go to Barbara Max Hubbard's original diagram, at the heart of where we have put compassion, there is a communion of souls.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the heart of compassionate cities or compassionate societies or world is really people awakening to the oneness of who they really are. So if a person is awake to who they are, then it manifests in art, it manifests in education, it manifests in different ways and so on, health. So I think we must really focus on how do you awaken that infinite love that is at the core of every one of us. Where automatically I'm one with Yafa or Joan Brown Campbell or Namrata or Rakhi or Jeff. At that level, we are all the same. At the surface, we look different, but you look deeper, we are all infinite love, infinite compassion. Mm-hmm. So I think no matter what we do, the awakening to this central core, which Rabindranath Tagore, I was reading, he says it's infinite, it's one, it's wholeness. That to me is the heart of the starting point of creating compassionate cities, compassionate education, compassionate health. And maybe we need some very simple measures for how many people are awakened in a society, how many people are awakened in this city.
Okay, so
how do we awaken more people? And Jeff has some lovely metrics on this. I know. Yeah.
And one is
I'd like to say something. If I
yes,
may.
I mean.
Yeah. So I think this is all wonderful exercise, and I think the realization that that the whole is greater than the parts, and everything is interconnected, and all of that is fine. Here we as a group, we are just singing to each other what we already believe in, right? We're singing to the choir. However, when you go out in quote unquote the real world, we're actually a minority who think like this, who believe in these kind of stuff. The majority are people with very different mindsets, and I think the challenge will be how do you communicate something which becomes relevant to people who are not very compassionate or are too overwhelmed in their survival mode for them to think of compassion and see that as a distant luxury. So I think it will be a strategic thing for us to brand, communicate, and make it relevant and show the value proposition to the majority who would consider us a bunch of do-gooders who are out of touch with reality. And I think that'd be the overarching challenge. Thank you.
Yeah. And I just want to say thank you, Amin, and thank you, Arun, because I agree completely. And we had a lovely conversation about restorative justice. And we all agree on the principles of compassion, right? Because that's why we are here. And the question that we have left with is how do we, what is the awakening process looks like? How can individual awaken to this understanding of the notion of we are all interconnected, the common humanity? We ended up with a Longfield, what's his name? Just a second. Longview, I think, yeah. With a Longview quote that is a Longfellow quote, which he said, if we can be awakened basically to our enemy, we would find in each man's or woman's life, sorrow, and suffering enough to disarm all hostility. So, but what does it take? That's a question that we are left. And if we have to discuss this question, because we all agree, I think, in early sectors about the interconnectedness and the interdependence of all things, how do we get there? What does it start? Does it start with an individual journey, like awakening of individual, like mindful self-compassion I'm very involved in and other things? And if there is any other ideas and the metrics and how we measure those, I think we'll really feeling very satisfied when we end here.
So Juan Carlos, do
Thank you, Yafna.
Do you want to respond,
Yes.
or I can interject?
Yeah,
or why don't you go first?
Let me just quickly respond here. I will summarize many of your insights, and yes, the answer to many of the things you are saying. This is exactly the path we are taking. This working the wheel, the magic of the wheel is that automatically help us to understand that nothing could happen without the help of others. So this is like a way to a multi-centric, bring compassion into the center, we bring a question to the center, and all of these sectors have to contribute to make it happen. So everything is interconnected, and what the way the wheel works, we bring a question to the center as how do we get a compassionate education to happen in a community, and then all of these sectors will have to respond from business, from governance, from infrastructure, etc. And that's how we start weaving a community into action. And definitely, yes, we will get this into metrics. This is like the first exercise. This is the first iteration of this process. We want to turn everything you are writing, we want to fine tune it, and we will turn this into metrics. Once we have the metrics, we will go very creative, I am sure, in many ways, many projects on how to do it. And the vision we have of this is that we can have a repository of successful projects happening all over the world, in all of the cities, and we could be cross-pollinating best practices from one city to another, sharing best. Every city, of course, will adjust to the value different conditions in their city. So this is how this is working. And Marilyn, you wanted to complement, and then we have Donna raising her hand, and then we will need to go back to the other part of the exercise.
Yeah, I also wanted to tell you, Juan, that we're at 9:20, and so we are really very much behind. So we're going to have to make some adjustments, so you can start thinking about that. What I wanted to say is that wheel that you were working with today is actually the charter. It's not made up. I mean, the thing that's so amazing is that Barbara Marx Hubbard was out there working hard on this wheel of co-creation. We were parallel to her, and the language is not so different. The ideas are not so different. And so, you know, I just want to say that when we go in and start working with a compassionate community, we without having that wheel, which is wonderful that Felipe has helped us reconstruct it to what the charter is. I mean, we're working from that wheel, and we're building those partnerships from the ground up. And I don't know if you saw how many, you know, clapping signs and festivity signs that, you know, when people were talking, because it's like, wow, that is our work. And I think the staff is going to say, that's our passion. But the beauty of this is that we're going to be able to continue to work on that. I don't think we're going to have a retreat like this, but what we would like to do is to call on everyone to contribute to the PowerPoint that we started today. We're going to take a fresh look at it and maybe add a little bit more. We're going to send it out. I mean, one of the things that you can do is that you have email addresses of everyone, is that you can continue to work with your partner. But I know that my partner and I, we were gravitating to another sector. And you're absolutely right. I mean, they all blend, and this is a real effort. And I know that we, you know, we have space for measurement and indicators. We've been working hard on that with Juan Carlos and Ole and Marilyn Hamilton, who we will sometime bring into this conversation. So I just wanted to let you know that this is just the beginning. So I'm sorry, Donna, go ahead if you can unmute yourself.
No apologies. Share the space with you. I want to just offer a challenge, because I disagree with Yafa and Amin in the space, respectfully, in the space of we're a small group of people about compassion. I think that compassion lives in each and every one of us, and when we come to the other with compassion, compassion will come out of the other one. I want to eradicate the word enemy. Enemy is, how helpful is that? It's not helpful at all. It's not compassionate. I want to eradicate it. And I know that when you go into a community and you can come into it with true compassion, you can bring people together. I have that deep belief in humanity. And so there's a video, and I won't go into it, but it's 40 people, 50 people and 40 questions, and it puts people in racial groups, right? And then they start asking you these questions about life. And at the end, everybody, the last question is, do you believe that we are better together? And all 50 people went into the yes category. So I challenge the idea that people, it's how are we pulling it out of them? And that has a lot to do with our media and the narratives and the stories that we speak culturally. So I think compassion, what we need in the compassion world is a new narrative of who are we and how are we and how shall we choose to be. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Juan Carlos, he's clapping, but are you ready to move on, knowing that we now have 36 minutes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as you say, we need to readjust. We need to make a decision whether we continue with this exercise. With what we have in the agenda right now is I was going to make a presentation of back of the Magic Canoe, which I did a little bit of a presentation last time, or we could continue the exercise, go back to practice the fine-tuning of the different sectors of the wheel, and then we harvest. Those are the two options, Marlene. What do you feel is more appropriate?
Okay, I think it would be helpful for you to do the presentation that we planned, because Susan's saying no?
No, I think there's energy here, and I think people got really energized by that conversation, and I think put them back into those same groups, I think that's really going to feed some really good stuff. That's my 2 cents.
Well, I think that that's probably true, but I think some of us maybe are wanting to go to other groups and contribute. But at the same time, the next part that what we were going to do, because remember, this part is not done. And we want it to be, you know, an ongoing thing that for a period of time that people would contribute to. But I think there's another layer of depth into what Juan Carlos was going to present. So maybe Juan Carlos, if you could do, I don't want to say shorten, but if you could do your presentation, and then we can end with going back, because then maybe people will be looking at the exercise that they just did with still another perspective. Does that make sense to you, Juan Carlos?
Yes, okay, let's do that. I will make it very short. I just want to bring some basic concepts.
Okay.
And from there we can go back to the groups. Thank you. Okay, so as we presented in last time, some of the basic elements that we're bringing to bring manifestation into action, co-creation into action, we need to understand that, well, in the research I did in Sweden on large-scale collaboration, how do we get groups to collaborate and be successful, we found that there were 3 elements that we need to understand and represent in every group, which are the circle, the square, and the triangle. And this is an element. It's about balancing the masculine and the feminine energies in any community, in any group. When talking to Marilyn and also to Christina, we were wondering where is the energy of the group? Are we leaning more into the feminine principles, which is let's talk about what we want to do and opening our hearts and going into the deep end, into the inner exploration of what we want to do, what is the shared vision that we have, or are we more into the action part? Sometimes what happens in many NGOs, we can be more focused on the feminine side, which is we are talking about how do we want to help and do some good to the world, but we don't move too much into the action. And sometimes in corporations, in businesses, they are too much into the side of doing, into the masculine part of getting things done, and not really focusing on the high purpose that they should be pursuing. So what we are striving here is that Charter for Compassion could find the balance between embracing a higher goal and also balancing the masculine principle of making it real. And the square are the balancing structures and the organizational agreements and the organizational culture that as a group we should be having in order to balance the masculine and feminine principles of a community. So let's go to the other one. Let's do the next slide, please.
Is this the one you want? Is this the one you want?
What we found. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay. And something that we. Oh no, it's the other one.
Okay. Or is it the other one?
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. So something that is also really that we have been observing in groups is that we need to find the balance between the relational and the strategy. So when we work as a group, we first have we need to make sure that we build the relational elements, that we get into a shared vision, and that we get into a deep understanding of the need.
They're supposed to tell us where we're going, right?
I think we lost Juan Carlos.
Well, while we're waiting, I just have a quick question, Marilyn, because are we going to break into groups again, and are they going to be the same groups? Because if they want to be different, then I need to quickly switch everyone.
No, we'll break into the same groups.
Okay,
I think that I don't know what happened. His transmission obviously went out, but I can switch back to the Magic Canoe. But essentially, I'll do this real quickly. you know, as you can see, right before we go into the other groups, you know, he was going to talk about, you know, how it's really important for us to look at the difference between training models on your left-hand side and what are models of co-creation. And so as we, you know, look, oh, there you are. Okay, I started to, I'll take you back to this part of the Magic Canoe.
Yes, I've been using this modeling for the past 10 years. And what I've been finding is that if we want to learn to co-create, we need to first build this field of love, and we can only build this in the first phase, and then we can move into action. Normally groups, they move too quickly into action, and if they don't have a strong relational bond, they will break. And sometimes some groups might just stay in the comfort zone of the relational field, talking about how good and beautiful we are, how beautiful dreams we have, but getting nothing done. And we need to balance those parts. And some other people might just be very well, very organized and strategic doing things, but doing nothing good to the planet. So we want to balance this process of the masculine, feminine elements. So we can go now to the next, please.
Mm-hmm.
And I want, yes, and what we do with the, I mean, there was another slide where we show the 7 steps on how do we get to co-create. We want.
Is this the one that you want?
Now,
is this
but
the
this
one?
is yes, sorry?
No, I just asked if this is the one you wanted.
Yeah, this is the one. Thank you
Okay.
very much. And we are combining here some elements of the U theory and the Gestalt. And this is just, we did an exercise of social biomimicry, understanding how nature works, and we translated this to the co-creation process. And this is a guideline on how groups could follow the building the feminine energy, going through the unknown, sitting in the ambiguity process, and then moving into action. So we can, this could be one of the trainings and that we could be sharing and supporting teams that would like to learn how to co-create. And then the last one, please.
I'm not sure if this is the last one or not. Is it?
The one with the 7 levels of co-creation. Yes. So the 7 levels of co-creation that we have here, this is the way we understood when I was doing this research on large-scale collaboration in my master's in Sweden. We understood that there are 7 levels of complexity on how society interacts, and we need to master these 7 levels. And all starts with the person, with bringing their deepest heart desire, this person asking, what is my greatest gift to humanity? And bringing this to the will, for instance, is you enter to the chart to a compassionate city. It might be that one of the deepest, greatest act of compassion that we could bring into a city could be to help each person to fulfill their deepest heart desire. And this person will have to go through a process of developing his relational skills, learning how to work effectively as a group, participating in a conscious organization, manifesting their dream with the resonant others, getting to become a conscious organization. And then the 5th level, the pyramid works all this way, but the 5th level, we get into networks, communities of practice. The networks, we can see the whole of a community. And in communities of practice, we find the people that can help us solve the problems we cannot solve in this place. And finally, what we are attempting is to work collectively as a social body. This is where the wheel of co-creation, the compassion wheel of co-creation fits. This is where we bring all of the community working towards strategic goals. We can see the heart in the center. And this is something we will be aiming, is that that we can weave a community working in all of these levels and getting into what we call the everybody all at once, getting the community to take strategic steps into each sector of the wheel making a difference in their cities. We believe this is totally possible. There's a question here with Olivia. Is there any evidence this model is working in cities? There are some similar models to this, and this is a way to fine-tune these models. Marilyn Hamilton works using something similar, working with the mesh working process, and this is working definitely in cities. What we are proposing with this model is to use the wheel as a way to increase the capacities for a community to strengthen the social fabric of a community, which is what we want to do. We want to increase the bonds between one another so we can bring back two things: the bonds of trust in a community and the belief that we can do it. Something that is really tragic is that we have been losing the capacity to believe that we can live in a better society. And that's what we can achieve in the seventh level, building shared positive visions for the future and working together to make them real. So thank you for this, for letting me give you this short presentation. And yes, we can share more about the evidence. There is a lot of evidence on how this is working already in many ways.
I think that we should let you know, and we're really very much at the beginning stages, but just as we have compassion integrity training, what we are working towards is to have a training with unnamed at this point that would be very similar to CIT, but it would be based on what you are experiencing here. And it would be for grassroots people in compassionate cities, and for others who are thinking about, all of those people who have signed up their cities, but we cannot, respond to all of them in an equal way. So therefore, we're looking to build this course with Juan Carlos and with Marilyn Hamilton and a few other people that we've been introduced to over the last couple months. And I think that it's going to happen soon. And we'll do a pilot first, of course, and then open it up. Okay, so Juan Carlos, should we send people back to their original groups? And then I think it's possible for people, if the two people that are together, if you want to maybe go to another group and just see what's being developed and get excited.
Yeah, and I would suggest that this time we only go for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then so we can have another 10 minutes just to wrap up and check out.
Okay.
And because, can we just have some clarity on what exactly this breakout is for?
This is to continue with what you've been doing. And remember, there are two questions, two different slides for you to answer. I know some of you have already done that. So what I'm suggesting is, if you feel complete, even now after hearing about the Magic Canoe, maybe you want to make some changes or make some additions, you can do that. But if you feel that you're somewhat complete, then you can cheat creatively and go to any of the other sectors that you feel that you want to put some things in. How's that? Yeah.
Yes. And I would just like to add some final instruction. And this exercise is about thinking out of the box. This is about really challenging the status quo, challenging the social architecture that we live in, and bring compassion to the center to guide us to evolve our social operating system. A friend of mine, Bernard Lyotard, used to say, the problem of humanity is not about human nature. People say that, oh, we're living in this way because of human nature. He said, that's wrong. It's about social architecture. If we shift the social agreements on how each one of these sectors works on social agreements, if we evolve them, humanity will change. Humanity inherently is good. It is the social structures that are built within in all paradigms. So the invitation now is thinking the new paradigm on how a compassionate city will live, and let's start building, shifting the paradigm by doing this exercise. So this is the invitation for this part.
Okay, and we had 2 people leave, so a few of you might be in new rooms just because I needed to rearrange. Okay, see you all. Hello.
Beautiful.
Well,
A lot of engagement.
was it? Good,
Yeah.
good discussion.
Yeah, reading everyone is very nice.
Okay.
I got pulled before my time was up.
Yeah, that happens. Okay, I'm looking to see almost everyone is back.
That is the best thing I've ever seen, that if you want something to end, you can just kind of close it off.
Yeah, it just.
that is not easy.
No. Okay.
So,
We had, yes.
Marilyn, in Hindi, in India, we say "Dil mange more." The heart wants more.
I know, Dil mange more. Well, here's the thing. This is the time where you tell us what you think the next steps are. I do have a slide for that, but I think instead of going back and forth, you can just tell us and we'll record it, because this is being recorded. The recording will be sent out to you. You'll see some things that you haven't seen before, maybe your pictures and everything. But yes, we missed one major activity, but I think that we achieved quite a bit. So let's open it up. Gart has his hand up.
So I just want to say thank you to Juan Carlos, fabulous. But I want to say that for me in Las Vegas, there are 2 rails. One of them has to do with the sectors. One of them has to do with understanding metrics around the sectors and what's going on. But the other rail is as important, or maybe in some ways even more important, which is creating circles of trust, which is creating relational depth. And we can teach all the courses in the world, we can read all the books in the world. That's all wonderful, but if we don't go deeper with one another, if we don't create what I would call not just awakening, but what Paramahansa Yogananda called self-realization, we can have all the skill sets in the world, but we're not going to get from here to there. So I just want to encourage really putting into the culture of what we're doing, creating what you call life support groups, what I call circles of trust, a la Parker Palmer. Whatever we call it doesn't really matter to me, but it's being able to gather with a group of individuals where there is conscious intention, where there are transformational contemplative practices like Charlie led us on and Yafa has led us on, where we create a level of depth which allows the imagination to flourish. So that would be my input for the day.
Well said. Thank you.
I may just add very quickly. I think as we've all realized that human behavioral change is a long-term process, and it just takes a long, long time. And living in this polarized environment, especially these days, it's much bigger. And hence, I feel, what we are embarking here is also a human behavioral change project. And I think we need to manage our expectations, just like Gart said, that, we need to take deep dives. It takes a lot of time, effort, opposition, and also resources. So I think all of these elements also need to be factored in while we create the model.
Right, thank you. Okay, other thoughts, and especially ideas about how to move forward. Juan and I have talked about some of that. Maha, did you have your hand up, or is it in the chat?
Yeah, Charles. I let Charles do that.
No, please go ahead, Maha, and I'll follow. Please.
Okay, okay. I loved what God was talking about, allowing the imagination to flourish. And I think we are here with this space we are providing, with this structure we are providing. There is something that is allowing the imagination to flourish. And I would like us to multiply it. And I mean by that, what happens if we don't say, if we bring people to say, and we involve people to create the wisdom by allowing them to imagine. And also, I would like to also say, as a way ahead for me, I can imagine if we involve visualizing this connectivity. So the more we reach out to people, we leave them with a star to hold on to us, and we see our web expanding. And just to be very boring, to say, what happens if we create a Slack between all of us? I know Slack needs education, but that's an education where we visualize our connectivity. We create a community manager who manage us to be creative and create those cores of conversations. The more we know each other, the more creative we can be. Finished.
Okay, we have Charles, we have Namrata, and Arun.
I was just going to make a few comments. I was with Maha in this last session, and we talked about, how does religion interface spirituality for the earth fit in with the model that we've been talking about today? And obviously, all of the sectors should be fitting together quite nicely. They've been in place for a number of years. It's just we need to probably connect better. And I think that we have some plans already in place where we're hopeful that with more funding we can do those. But I made this statement, by being the charter from the church, by being facilitator, catalyst, the charter can really promote through its communities and sectors this value of compassion and desire for further knowledge and embodiment of the skills, co-creating the circles of trust that Gard's talking about, and fostering flourishing for all. And this pretty much ties in with what Maha's saying, that the individuality that we bring to this effort is so important. I mean, we all believe the same thing. We are really talking to the choir, as someone said earlier. What concerns me, and I think that if we didn't make this statement or we didn't bring this up within this retreat, we would be remiss as we talk about, well, what can we do to bring these things about? Well, it is a movement, and movements, and if we're already scaled to a high level, we have a value that people really engage with and want to be involved with. But how about the funding for sustainability? And I think that the charter faces now that issue, or that area of concern that we have at the board level. And I want to share with all that are here right now that this is something that we have grappled with. We're grappling with in more detail now, but we'll be grappling with this in the future, because if we don't strategize this wonderful vision that we have and this wonderful model that we have, if it doesn't get funded at least to a certain level, and how much is enough, I don't know, folks. I don't want it to be too much, because then it becomes something that's different. But enough that we can do the work that we need to do and hopefully flourish and move. And so we're talking about hubs, we're talking about ways of doing business, and this has got to be part of our strategy for the future. And we were talking about it. I just wanted to make that statement before we all leave. And so I'll be quiet, Marilyn, and you can pass the baton to somebody else.
Okay, Namrata and then Arun, we're right at the top of the hour. Again, we will definitely send out the recording here with the PowerPoint slides. The other thing is that we will probably send out some additional information about committee work that we hope that some of you will become involved with. because some people are already dropping off. So Namrata.
Yes, so very quickly, one of the things that we thought about was how can we think for the entire charter and not just the sector as to how do we make this happen. And Jeff and I were working on the education sector. And a thought that came to mind, which fits in beautifully with what Charles just mentioned in terms of practicality and taking this forward, is what if we were to do something bold, like do a year-long conference, which is, let's say, spread across 12 months, with each month focusing on one sector. And each sector really brings to bear the key focus areas and builds community. And each of those communities then starts becoming, Slack communities. And through this entire year, the focus of the sectors is not just to have, more meetings and to discuss what initiatives are happening, but to bring different compassionate cities from all over the world into that space and to curate the best practices, which can then be made available to all in various shapes and forms. I know we've done mega conferences earlier. I know Arun has that experience as well. And with the current situation, it might be something worth considering. So just wanted to park that for everyone.
Great, thank you. We have been having for the last year Compassionate City. They're not long, they're only an hour, sometimes 90 minutes. Next one coming up, Belfast. So check out the website. But I think we should talk because a lot is happening with recreating Europe and the UK. So a lot to come, I think. Arun.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Would you lead us out?
Lead us out as in?
After you make your comment, if you would
okay, sure.
Bless our
Sure,
event.
Sure, I'll do that. Thank you very much. So I think the sense I'm getting is that if each one of us listens to our heart, listens to what love is calling us to do, and we honor that source, we honor that guidance, and we work with other people who are called to do similar things, there will be a self-organization within the community of the Charter for Compassion. The way to do that is through a process called open space technology, which Juan knows and Jeff knows and Ann Stadler is a master in, and we've used it. So the thing is that, if we just, because Lynn might have her calling for something, so she puts up something, Mary Catherine may have something else. So if we self-organize using open space technology, I think the coherence and the passion will be higher. And addressing what Charles mentioned, very, very important, when we are listening to source, when the juiciness of working for source is manifested, somehow it attracts the funds, it attracts the money. That juiciness, that gratitude, that joy just acts like a magnet for money. So I would urge us to really, really, really be absolutely authentic and ask ourselves, what is source? What is that infinite compassion in our heart calling us to do? Honor that, team up with others who have similar calling, and magic will happen. So this is my submission. And for conclusion, just one word of gratitude. Anyone, just one word of gratitude from everyone, and we close. So one word, just say one word, that's it. Is that okay? Anyone, please.
Love.
Just love. Okay, thank you. Christina.
Joy.
Joy. Guard. Sorry, unmute, please. Guard.
Absolute gratitude.
Gratitude. Marcel.
Awe.
Oh, Madeline.
Hope.
Hope. Lynn.
Inclusion.
Thank you. Mary Catherine.
Excitement.
Excitement. Yafa.
Exploration.
Yes. Joan Brown. Joan Brown. Just unmute yourself, please. You need to unmute. Yeah, Joan Brown, you're unmuted now.
Go ahead again. Yes. Ask again, I'm sorry. Yes.
No, so what is the one word that comes to your heart at the
Gift.
close of the session?
Gift.
Gift. Okay, okay. Felipe, thank you, John. Felipe, energy. Namrata,
Oneness.
oneness. Maha, Alusi,
Humor.
humor. Juan Carlos,
Joyful community.
joyful community. Charles,
Grateful. I'm
grateful.
sorry.
Grateful.
Thankful was what I said earlier. You
Thankful,
caught me.
thankful, thankful. Rocky,
Compassionate revolution.
lovely. Juan Carlos, anything else?
Love and appreciation to other
Love
people.
and appreciation. Olivia and then Amin.
Curious.
Curious. Amin,
Privileged and connected.
thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks. Lots of love to everyone. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Juan Carlos. Big hug. Give yourself a big hug. Yay.
All right. Okay, everyone.
Yes. Thanks a lot.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
all.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.